Welcome back to Mastering CSS with me, Rich Finale. For the longest time, we were stuck with a few basic fonts like Times New Roman, Georgia, and Arial. If you wanted to deviate much farther than that, you ran the risk that the font wasn't going to show up when someone viewed your site because they may not have that font installed on their computer. If we wanted to use a fancy font, we'd have to save it as an image, which posed many problems. Luckily for us now, web fonts have officially emerged, which gives the ability to use a multitude of great fonts that will work on all computers. In this section, we're going to learn about web fonts. First, we'll learn about the basic syntax of the @FontFace rule, and we'll go over the font services like Font Squirrel. We'll then get into places that provide fonts and deliver them to your website like Google Web Fonts and Typekit. We'll finish up the section with icon fonts. In this video, let's start by learning about the @FontFace property to add a web font to our site. First, we'll add the OTF file to a folder on our site, then we'll define the new font in our CSS, and finally, we'll apply that CSS to elements on our web page. So, in our project files for this section, we have a new folder called Fonts. Inside this folder, there's an OTF file called League Gothic Regular that I downloaded from the League of Movable Type website. Don't worry so much where we got this from. We're going to cover the different places you can get fonts in subsequent videos in this section. So now, this font lives in our Sites folder, and the end user visiting our website will download this font onto their computer just like they downloaded the HTML, CSS file, and images. But first, we have to tell it to do that and look for it in our CSS. Near the top of our CSS file, right underneath our reset, there's a new section, Fonts. I'll add in the @FontFace property, and this will allow us to declare a new font. I'm going to declare the font name first, which can be anything. So even though the font is called League Gothic Regular, I can name it Bananas Serif if I chose to do so. Let's call it League Gothic though, because that makes the most sense. I'm putting it in single quotes for two reasons. One, it's a web font, and two, it has more than one word, which should always be quoted. Next, I'm going to declare where this font exists. So we'll use the source, and then we'll say it's in the Fonts folder, and the name of the font is League Gothic-regular.otf. And we want to make sure we spell that exactly right. And notice I use this .. What that basically says is go out of the CSS file and then go into the fonts file and look for League Gothic-regular.otf. So now we can add this font to any rule sets using the font family property that we're used to. We can specify fallbacks like we normally do as well, just in case the fonts don't get downloaded. So here we have our H1 and our H2. Let's say H1 and H2, and paragraphs are going to get a font family of League Gothic. And then we'll say Arial, Helvetica, Sans Serif. We'll save that and view the site. So this is what our fonts used to look like, and after a refresh, and bam, the very stylish web font is added to our website. It looks very good for the headlines, but this particular font doesn't look to be a very readable at paragraph size, so I'll remove it from the paragraph element as it would be torture for our visitors. So that's easy enough. I'll just get rid of the P from our selector, refresh, and there you go. In summary, we've successfully added a web font to our website. But what we did really isn't going to work in all browsers, unfortunately. And since typography may be the single most important thing on a web page, we've got to find a better solution. In the next 3 videos, we'll cover FontKit services, Google Web Fonts, and subscription web font services. All will provide the font files in multiple formats to support all browsers and provide the CSS needed to make sure each browser gets their most preferred font type. Font kits and font services are up next.